everyone, I'm back again with some book recommendations. So I'll leap straight in the order to try and keep them the video a bit shorter than some of my other ones. The first book I'm going to talk to you about today is a picture book called The Invisible by Tom Percival. So he's the author and the illustrator of this one, and I'll read you the blurb and then tell you a little bit more about it. It says, when Isabel and her family have to move to the far side of the city, Isabel starts to feel invisible. This is a tender and important story about really seeing those around us and how we all have a right to belong. And this beautifully illustrated story is, as it says, about a little girl who moves where she lives because actually her family don't have a huge amount of money and they have to move somewhere else that's more affordable for them to live. And when she gets there has to change schools and change the areas that she hangs out, she starts to feel invisible. She feels that, perhaps because she doesn't have the same opportunities as other people, she doesn't have the same things, her home circumstances don't feel the same as some of those people around her, and she starts to feel, invisible, like she's not really a part of the world. But when that happens, she looks at it, stops her in her tracks and makes her look around, and she realizes that there are other people in the same situation, and that actually maybe if they join together, if they sort of talk to each other, they would become more visible, not just to each other, but to other people as well, and perhaps form a sense of community and togetherness while they do that, which is exactly what happens. And this story, I've said to you lots of times about own voices, people writing from their own experience whether they're writing a non-fiction book or in this case a fiction book. So although Tom Percival writes a little bit at the back about his life and about how he was very poor when he grew up. He says he has to live in a caravan that didn't have running water, and they got their drinking water from a spring in the garden, which was all well and good until the day we found a dead frog in it. He talks about how there was a mobile library, which is, they don't seem to have many of anymore actually, but a library in a van basically, which is kind of like my dream. I'd love to have a library in a van. This library would come around and he would be able to borrow books, and he talks about what a difference that made to him, having something to read, and being able to, because his family couldn't have afforded books, but being able to borrow them from the library felt wonderful to him, and he learned so much and got so much enjoyment from being able to do that. So although this story isn't about Tom Percival's life, he is drawing on his own experience of what it feels like to to find things hard, to not have enough money for the things that you need, let alone the things that you might want, and he's used that to create this beautiful story. So it's a story with a really strong message at its heart, and it might make you feel quite strongly about what happens, but it's an uplifting story as well, and it talks about what we can all do to try and change things and hopefully improve everybody's living circumstances so that far fewer people, if anyone, has to find themselves in this situation. So it sounds quite serious, and in a way it is, but it's a really, really lovely and important book. So that's that one. The next one I'm going to show you it's a poem. It's called The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman, and that's actually sort of an outline of a picture of her there. And some of you may have heard of her. She read a poem at the inauguration of President Joe Biden, who took over as the President of the United States at the start of this year. And Amanda Gorman was invited to write and perform a poem at this, and that's a huge honour in the US to be invited to perform something at a president's inauguration, particularly if it's a president whose views you support and whose work you want to support. So she was invited to do that. They have people who sing and things as well doing it. She was invited to perform a poem, and the famous quote, which is written on the back, is actually the very end of the poem. Says, "For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." And that says to me that, we can look, even when things are hard, even when things feel really, really difficult, like they might have done, throughout the previous president's administration, for example, and because of all the different world events that are going on, you know, like coronavirus and climate change and so many other things, we can look for hope, we can look for positivity, we can look for the ways that we can make a change and we can join in. And so we can look for the light if we're brave enough, but also we can try and be the light. We can be the ones who make the change. We can, you know, we can be the ones to make a difference. And as you can see from this front cover, Amanda Gorman is black. And so obviously the sort of anti-racism work that lots of people have started in earnest since last year is a message that she's on board with, and that hopefully lots of the rest of us are as well. So, you know, that will have fed into her work for this and her research and sort of for this poem as well. So the whole book is quite short. If I show you some of the text on each page, it's just like that, and it's just a book version of the poem that she read. So you probably don't even need to buy the book if you didn't want to. There'll be plenty of clips I'm sure you can find on the internet of this, but I really wanted to support her work, and she's a fantastic poet even anyway. You can see some of the other work that she's done if you look into it a bit. But this felt like a really, really important poem at a really important time for lots of reasons. So that's that. This book is called Eyes That Kiss in the Corners by Joanna Ho, illustrated by Dung. And as far as I'm aware, I will double check in the back. I don't think, oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. It's pronounced Zung Ho. That's my fault. I thought I'd checked the pronunciation and I hadn't. And so they're not related to each other. And this story is about a little girl who feels slightly different from other people at school to start with. So if I try and show you a picture, yeah. She talks, and you might recognise these kinds of illustrations. You know, these look a bit Disney-ish, like quite a few of the cartoons we see. And she says some people have eyes like sapphire lagoons with laces like with lashes like lace trim on ball gowns, sweeping their cheeks as they twirl. Big eyes, long lashes. Not me. I have eyes that kiss in the corners and glow like warm tea. And as you go through the book, although she's talking about how her appearance feels different sometimes from those around her, she's really proud of that, and the whole story builds in a really strong sense of her pride in her own cultural heritage, you know, her family, the peoples whose appearance have, you know, had an impact on hers, so her mum and dad, and she's really pleased. She talks about being really pleased that her eyes look like her mum's eyes. And so, although again, it's got a message, which is actually people's different appearances don't say anything about who they are. It's the person that's inside that matters, and we need to, you know, celebrate diversity, look for ways to, you know, bring everybody together. And she talks about the fact that actually, yeah, it's not about just, you know, trying to be the same as everybody else all the time. It's about celebrating what makes you, you, and how important that is. So that is a lovely book and beautifully illustrated as well. And this final one I'm going to talk to you about today, I know just through chatting to some of your parents and things on the playground and seeing bits around that some of you might know about this one. This is a book by Adam Kay called Kay's Anatomy. And if you like horrible histories and some of those sort of horrible science books and things like that, this might well be up your street. It's really funny. I've read his book for grown-ups as well. He's written a couple of books for grown-ups, and I've read those. So he used to be a doctor, and he was a doctor for quite a few years. And then he decided that actually that wasn't for him. And so he became a writer and sort of a comedian, and he started creating scripts and things like that. And so as far as I'm aware, this is his first book for children. I think it is. But it's a really, 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 well, it says here, yeah, funny and completely disgusting guide to the human body. So all of those questions, I know my children certainly have lots of questions that sometimes I do know how to answer and sometimes I don't know how to answer, because science wasn't my favourite subject at school. I did like it, but there were other things that I liked more. And it's got basically, I'm just trying to get to the contents page, see if I can show you. Yeah. So it takes you on a tour all around around the human body, all of the different things that you might want to know. And it's one of those non-fiction books, you can dip into it in any order. So you don't need to start at the beginning and then read all the way through. If you just wanted to know about eyes or something like that, you can find a section on eyes and go straight there. So yeah, this is quite a chunky book if I hold it up there. But again, as it's one that you don't need to read in all in one go, don't let that put you off if you're someone who kind of looks at big chunky books and thinks, oh no, that's not for me. Because I know I certainly used to be like that, and my husband is still like that. So yeah, so that is my final recommendation for today, and I will be back next week. Okay, happy reading. Bye bye.